Should you invest in high income investments for your retirement plan? Now, I'm going to show you some here. I get this question a lot. Should I invest in QYLD? How about JEPI? How about covered call ETFs? All this stuff. And junk bonds and things. I'm going to show you why I'm not a big fan of that. Why do you get so frustrated the minute I start doing video? No, come here. Come here, baby. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you first. We're going to look at Wellesley Fund. Here's a Wellesley Income Fund. And I'm going to let Knucklehead out. Oh, boy, that Knucklehead. I love him. Now he's like, ah. You'll see the 30-day SEC yield is 4.13%. So what does that mean? What they do is they take the last 30 days of income Wellesley had paid, and then they annualize it over the course of 12 months. They say, okay, so we paid this amount of money over the last 30 days last month. If we were to continue to pay that over 12 months, you would have received X for your income. In this case, it's 4.13%. So if we had $100,000 in Wellesley Income Fund, we would have received $4,130. All right, that's what it says, and that's absolutely legitimate. So that's what that is. That's a Wellesley, because what we're going to do is we're going to compare Wellesley to the S&P 500. All right, so now we're going to hit our fund here for the S&P 500, VFINX. That's the S&P 500, boink. And we're going to click on this guy, and we're going to see what the hell happened. Oh, I didn't want that. Hold on a second. Let me pause it. See here, this is only paying 1.38%. So if every $100,000 in Wellesley, you made $4,130 over the last 30 days, annualized for a whole year. For every $100,000 in the S&P 500, you only made $1,380 the last 30 days, annualized over a whole year. So quite a significant difference. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Portfolio Visualizer, and we're going to back test both these guys. We're going to go back to 1977 is as far back as we can go here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put $100,000 in each, all right? And we're going to display the income to show you the difference in income, and then we're not going to reinvest dividends. We're going to take the income out, all right? Hope that makes sense. So check this out. All right, so that 4.183% and the 1 point whatever it was for S&P 500, we're not reinvesting. We're pulling that money out to spend it. All right, so check this out. So after, right here, after 1976 to the end of February, the S&P 500 is worth $3.199 million. The Vanguard Wellesley is worth $202,000. But that's not what we're shooting for in terms of the growth. We're shooting for income. So we say, yeah, but the reason is because it didn't pay as much. And you can see right here, the compounded annual growth rate on the S&P 500 was 7.62. The compounded annual growth rate of Wellesley was 1.51. So let's show you what the dividends look like. And you can see here's the S&P 500 gets smoked. S&P 500, S&P, 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 S&P. Wellesley got smoked there, 1994, 1999, 1987, and that's it. So the Wellesley has done very much better than the S&P 500 in terms of downside risk, and you can see that right here. Max drawdown for Wellesley was 28%. Max drawdown for S&P 500 is almost twice that. Worst year for Wellesley was 10%. Worst year for S&P 500 is almost quadruple that. All right, so you can see the Wellesley, for stability, has done a whole lot better than the S&P 500. It's just a fact. But in terms of growth rate, S&P 500 smoked it. But then you say, well, how about income, Josh? Because that's what we're talking about, income. Watch the income here. Red's Wellesley, blue's S&P 500. You can see the Wellesley, again, 4.183 versus 1.5, whatever it is for the S&P 500. This goes back to 1977. Wellesley's beating it, and then slowly S&P 500 takes over. Then Wellesley kicks back in. Wellesley kicks back in, kicks back in, kicks back in, kicks back in, kicks back in. And then look what happened, though. S&P 500 is now just dominating. So in 2023, S&P 500 gave you $40,000 of income. The Wellesley only gave you $9,651. And 40 years previous, the S&P 500 gave you half the income Wellesley did. 40 years later, the S&P 500 gave you quadruple the income the Wellesley did. And even here in 1997, S&P 500 gave you $13,000 of income. Wellesley gave you $21,000. And the reason for this is because there's more of the portfolio. You can see the income is just growing and growing and growing. And that's the issue with high income stuff. Let me show you another example. We're going to go to PFF, preferred stock. I like preferred shares. Right here, this is PFF, the iShares preferred income securities. It's basically preferred stocks. And it's paying 6.47 right now. All right, 6.47. which is significantly higher than Wellesley and significantly higher than the S&P 500. So you're getting lots of income here. So let's go back to preferreds. We're going to add Wellesley, and we're going to add the S&P 500, and we're going to analyze. And the preferred goes back to 2008, and we're going to not reinvest our dividends. We're not reinvesting. We're going to take the cash. All right, so let's see what happened. At the end of 2024, our portfolio of the preferreds, we start with $100,000, is only worth $77,000. So we started in 2008, because this is as far back as PFF goes. It went down to $77,000. Wellesley is still above water. We start with $100,000 in Wellesley, and even though we didn't reinvest, we still have $113,000. S&P 500's got $350,000 in there. Now let's take a look at income, because again, people say, "Oh, I only care about the income." Yeah, watch what happens here. From an income perspective, look at this. Here's the S&P 500. Here's the Wellesley, and here's the preferred. Preferred's way above all those things. Way above, but it's starting to get lower. Ooh, 2012, what? Wellesley is taking over preferred. Wellesley is now dominating preferred. 2023, I won't say dominating, but more. But look what's coming up, starting to grow more and more and more. Finnegan, the S&P 500, because of growing dividends. The growing dividends. I cannot stress enough how important growing dividends are. So now, in 2008, S&P 500 only paid $1,800 on $100,000 invested. The preferred pays $6,651, so 6.7% yield. If that makes sense. Fast forward till today, S&P 500 pays $4,400 of income. Preferred paid $4,900 of income. But yet we look at the value. Look at that. So there's just more money of dividend, of reinvesting. This isn't reinvesting dividends, but more money of growing dividends to pay income. The preferred isn't growing their dividends. They're paying a fixed dividend amount, essentially. That's why back here, you could have got almost the same yield you're getting now, 6.6, and right now it's paying 6.7, 6.47. But the problem is the preferred is only giving you that right there. You only got 77,000 left in it. And that's the issue I have with these high income things, is you're not growing the income. The income is being flat, and you want growing income. And that's why dividends are so valuable. So I just got off the horn with a guy, and it's just like this, why I just say the 4-year bucket, man. You got 4 years of cash. If you want some bonds in there to help you sleep at night, that's fine. But 4 years cash and VTI. Growing income. Not flat income, not fixed income, growing income. You don't have to do that, but that's just why I like that inherently, because I got enough cash to ride me through a massive downturn, and then I got a growing portfolio of increasing dividends. Now, will that change? It could. I mean, I can't go back to, let's look at Wellesley versus the S&P 500. Let's get rid of this guy here, and we're just going to look at Wellesley versus the S&P 500 going back to 2000 to 2010. And you'll see, because the S&P 500 got smoked, obviously. And, is that a once-in-a-lifetime thing? It's not once in a lifetime. It's happened before, 1973, 1974. It happened in 1930s, you know what I'm saying? So we've had a couple of times the S&P 500 just got hammered. And you'll see here, this is the S&P 500. At the end of 2009, it was down to, February 2009, it was down to $50,000, where Wellesley was at $88,000. You can see Wellesley stood firm, and then got drunked right there, dropped. But so at the end of the decade, Wellesley was still at 115, still above par, above water. Head was above water. S&P 500 was still under. Let's take a look from an income perspective. From an income perspective, the Wellesley is still dominating. It's starting to get better, closer though. So here in 2000, you got $961 on a Vanguard portfolio of $100,000. Wellesley gave us $7,745. Come back over here now, though, we're getting a lot closer. See how it's starting to close? The difference is starting to close. So Wellesley gave us $4,200. Vanguard only gave us $1,400. So Vanguard actually increased. It doubled, not quite, but almost doubled his income. Wellesley's income actually went down. Now, obviously, that changed because the incomes kept going higher. But that's the issue about high income versus growing dividends. For me, I want growing dividends. I'm just telling you right now. I'm going to do another video later today just looking at it, because I got a guy who's interested in index annuities. And I'm not against index annuities, but he said, that has no downside risk, and I'll get market-like returns. And I said, well, what market, first and foremost? And does that reinvest the dividends? And the answer is no, they don't. And so if you take away reinvesting dividends, I'm going to show you, just going back from 2000 till today, it's not the market that you think. It's a significant, and this is when dividends are low too, by the way, the last 20 years. It's just significantly different in terms of dividends reinvested or growing dividends versus just taking your dividends out, or not even having dividends, I should say, because of index annuities. They don't even allow you to keep your dividends. So I like growing dividends versus high income. That's just a fact, even if I'm retired. Stocks, cash, I think is perfect. Hard to shake a stick at that. All right, love to hear your thoughts. God bless. We'll see you.